Welcome to our presentation. I am Mark, and I am joined by Bavraj, Brendan, Hamza, Jacob, Malind, and Zebo. We will be talking about the auto industry and why there is a huge shift to electric vehicles.
Gas-powered engines were invented in 1861 by Nicholas August Otto. The invention helped start the Industrial Revolution, but with the gas-powered engines, they all used unrenewable resources such as fossil fuels. But with the constant progress of humankind to make things more efficient, the gas-powered engine is viewed as obsolete, and engineers have discovered newer and more efficient ways to generate energy. This eventually resulted in the creation of an electric motor. At their first incarnation, they weren't nearly as powerful as the gas powered engines that we see in our motorized vehicles. However, that changed over time due to innovation. Electric motors have been appearing more often in motor vehicles and other engines, such as electric generators and scooters that can be seen around the city. With recent forecasts and pollution levels and rising gas prices, the industry is becoming obsolete due to a lack of resources and not being renewable. Companies are seeking alternatives to their motors. This global interest in reducing carbon emissions and our footprint has led to global protests, new bills, and taxes to be introduced to combat the growing concern for our pollution. Companies have been taking it upon themselves to develop more efficient motors with alternative fuel sources. The growth in the electric motor industry has contributed to the reduction of pollution, and more people are turning to these motors and vehicles since they are cheaper in the long run and have less spending on gas. The changes that were adopted by the industry were that each company was being held for corporate responsibility where they needed to become more efficient while creating an eco friendly alternative to gas powered engines. A driving force for this change was the number of consumers and investors wanting to remove their carbon footprint by making a zero emissions option. People in recent years have been more aware and conscious of their choices, whether that is an alternative to meat or simply using paper straws instead of plastic straws. Change to the electric motor can't be triangulated to a single factor. There have been multiple factors that created the change for the industry, but to experts, there has been an estimated increase in the industry, and by 2032, have a market size that surpasses 249 billion USD. Electric motors have become more efficient with innovation and are nearly as efficient as gas powered engines as well. There has been a growing increase in electric charging stations all throughout Canada, with there being nearly 1,600 public available charging stations and 6,000 private charging sites.
Now let's talk about pressures. The transition from diesel and petrol vehicles to electric vehicles is a significant trend in the automotive industry. A combination of internal and external pressures, such as customer demands, technological advancements, corporate strategies, government regulations, and environmental concern, is driving this transition. Car manufacturers are increasingly investing in electric vehicles as countries around the world implement stricter emission standards and consumers become more aware of environmental impact of traditional cars. In this context, it is critical to comprehend the various internal and external pressures driving the transition to electric vehicles. Let's dig further. Now let's talk about internal pressures. Consumer demand. As consumer becomes more aware of the environmental impact of traditional petrol and diesel vehicles, there is a growing demand of electric vehicles. According to a Deloitte survey 2022, 50% of respondents in the United States of America and 61% in China are willing to consider purchasing an electric vehicle for their next car, which is a good and a huge number. Now let's talk about technological advances. The advancement of advanced battery technology has been a driving force in the transition to the electric vehicles. Over time, lithium-ion batteries, which are commonly used in electric vehicles, have become more affordable and efficient. Now let's talk the last internal pressure, that is corporate strategies. As part of their long-term corporate strategies, many car manufacturers are investing heavily in electric vehicles. For example, Volkswagen has pledged to invest around 35 billion pounds by 2025 in electric vehicles and digitalization to become a carbon neutral company by 2050, which is a great number and a huge number. Now, let's dig further and move to external pressures. So, one of the major external pressures that the automotive industry are facing right now is the government regulations. Government regulations are a major external force driving the transition to electric vehicles. Many countries have set targets for the phase out of petrol and diesel vehicle sales in the coming years. For example, Norway tends to phase out sales of petrol and diesel vehicle by 2025, which is very near, and it's a very um, if I say it's a very motivated step to do. Now let's talk about another external pressure, which is environmental concerns. Concerns about the environmental impact of traditional petrol and diesel vehicles are also driving the shift towards electric vehicles. Transportation, according to an International Energy Agency, accounts for roughly one quarter of global greenhouse gas emission, which is a concerning thing. Now, let's talk about the last but not the least external pressure, which is economic incentives. Governments all around the globe and other organizations are also offering financial incentives to encourage the use of electric vehicles. Electric car owners, for example, can benefit from tax breaks, reduced road tolls, and free parking in some countries.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Jacob here, and I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about the methods for managing resistance to change in the automotive industry. More specifically, I'm going to be talking to you guys about some of the things that we've been looking at in regards to introducing electric cars into this industry that has predominantly been, I guess, managed and run by gas and diesel alternatives. So historically, whenever car companies have come out with an electronic option or an electric option for a car, it is typically a side sort of gig. It's something that is marketed as a futuristic option, and it's not really catered to the bulk of buyers. So with this, people kind of form doubts if they are, used to driving a gas vehicle and they're maybe a little bit iffy on the future of an electric car and they need to be convinced. The current ad campaigns are not really reaching out to that audience at all. As we know, things are becoming more dire and we are looking for ways to cut back on greenhouse gas emissions. And so the electronic car industry is like the opportunity is growing, is what I'm trying to get at. And essentially, if we are going to be able to make that change successful, we're going to have to be able to successfully manage the resistance to that change. And so moving from a model where we're just educating people on features of the car, we're going to have to be able to move to a model where we facilitate and support a transition to this new reality, essentially. So that's going to look like communicating and proving that these new options are going to be not just as reliable, but maybe even more reliable than the current alternatives, and showing people that, hey, it will be a cost-effective option because you aren't going to have to pay for gas, but not just telling people and giving them a feature list and having it as a secondary option, but really showing them and proving to the people that it is reliable and it is something that we are going to see benefit from moving towards a model that we sell more electric cars and maybe push for a more electric car future than what we're currently looking at with this gas and diesel dominated industry. But yeah, essentially the most successful method for managing this resistance to change is going to be the facilitation and support model. Right now, we're just kind of info dumping on people, and if we want to see success in these changes, we are definitely going to have to move to a model uh, that pushes people to um, try something new and support them through that change. So yeah, that is all for this slide.
Electric vehicles have had a remarkable glow up in a relatively short period. Initially, when electric vehicles were introduced in the automobile market, the companies faced severe backlash from the public as a majority of the population labeled electric vehicles as overpriced and an inefficient alternative to traditional automobiles. However, key factors such as rising climate concerns and the volatility of gas prices have pushed people to refresh their understanding of electric vehicles. The consequences or effects of electric vehicles on the automotive industry are as follows. The first, environmental impact of electrical vehicles. It is essential to note that electric vehicles are battery powered, but they are not entirely emission free. In the case of electric vehicles, carbon emissions are created during the manufacturing process and also when charging the battery. Manufacturers require fossil fuels to mine the minerals used in the batteries and to generate the power used to recharge them. However, electric vehicles produce far fewer greenhouse gas emissions and other pollutants when compared to traditional automobiles. Second is the shifts in the supply chain. With the integration and adoption of electric vehicles, there have been major changes in the supply chain of the automobile industry. The production of electric vehicles has led to a major shift in the supply chain as manufacturers transition away from traditional internal combustion engines and move towards batteries and other electrical components that are required to build electric vehicles. Companies that are manufacturing both traditional and electrical vehicles have been forced to make major changes in the design, production, and distribution of vehicles. Several companies like Ford and Chevrolet have made major modifications to their factories and supply chain as the manufacturing process for electric vehicles is completely different from traditional vehicles. Manufacturers of electric vehicles require huge quantities of lithium to build the batteries. Currently, the supply chain for lithium is underdeveloped and unprepared for the sudden rise in demand for electric vehicles. As a result, this has forced countries and companies from all over the world to invest billions of dollars to improve the technology and infrastructure required to produce these factories. An example of this is Tesla, who has built a gigafactory in Nevada to tackle lithium supply chain issues in the United States. The third consequence is the disruption in the oil and gas industry. The rising production and demand for electric vehicles have caused major changes in the oil and gas industry. For decades, the oil and gas industry has been directly related to the automobile industry. This basically means that if the demand for the automobiles is high, then the demand for oil and gas is also high, and vice versa. The surging popularity of electric vehicles has created uncertainty in the oil industry, but it has the potential to create an additional demand for natural gas to provide electricity as a power source for electric vehicles. Some economists predict that due to electric vehicles, there will be less demand for oil in the future, which can decrease oil prices significantly and ultimately have a ripple effect on the global economy. The next consequence is the increased demand for power or electricity. Electric vehicles have significantly increased the electricity demand. In the future, it is predicted that the electricity demand will be even higher due to the rising number of electric vehicles. This has put pressure on governments to spend more on electricity infrastructure, availability, and distribution while keeping it affordable for the mass public. This has also forced countries to explore and develop new opportunities for renewable energy sources such as wind and solar power. The last consequence is changes in consumer behavior. As mentioned earlier, consumers have become more aware of the environmental impact of traditional petrol and diesel vehicles. This has enabled the demand for electric vehicles to rise exponentially. Automobile companies are continuously working to cut down manufacturing costs and speed up the production of electric vehicles to keep up with consumer demand. Companies are also actively trying to make electric vehicles more affordable for the public, as currently most electric vehicles are more expensive than traditional vehicles. If the automobile companies are successful in pricing the cars at a lower or the same price as traditional vehicles, the demand for electric vehicles will rise to the moon. Overall, the transition towards electric vehicles has had a wide-ranging impact on not only the automobile industry, but also on the oil and gas industry, energy infrastructure, consumer behavior, and society as a whole. While there may be challenges and concerns in the short run, the long-term benefits of electric vehicles can create a smarter and a more sustainable world.
The automobile industry has been through significant changes over the years, but there is still much work to be done to prepare for the future. The first recommendation is to embrace technology. Technology has revolutionized the way we live and work, and it is no different for the automobile industry. The industry must embrace the latest technological advancements, such as electric vehicles and autonomous driving, to stay ahead of the game. By investing in new technologies, the industry can improve its efficiency, reduce costs, and enhance its competitive advantage. Embracing technology can bring significant benefits to the automobile industry, ranging from improved safety and customer experience to increased efficiency and sustainability. By staying ahead of technological advancements and leveraging them strategically, the automobile industry can continue to innovate, thrive in rapidly evolving automotive landscape. My second recommendation for the automobile industry is to foster a culture of innovation. This culture of innovation is essentially to staying ahead of the curve, responding quickly to customer needs, and remaining competitive. One way to foster this culture of innovation is to encourage collaboration. Collaboration can help teams generate new ideas, uh, share knowledge, and build stronger relationships. It can lead to more creative and effective solutions to complex problems. Another way to foster innovation is to embrace experimentation by experimenting with new ideas, technologies, and processes. Companies can identify new opportunities, learn from their mistakes, and innovate faster. Providing resources and support is also crucial to fostering a culture of innovation. Companies need to invest in the right resources, such as technology, training, and development programs, to support their employees' innovative ideas. Recognizing and rewarding innovation is also essential to fostering a culture of innovation. Companies should celebrate and recognize employees who contribute innovative ideas or solutions, and reward them accordingly. This can help motivate employees to continue to innovate and contribute to the company's success. Fostering a learning mindset is also crucial to innovation. Companies should encourage their employees to seek out new knowledge, learn from their experiences, and continuously improve. Finally, empowering and supporting entrepreneurship can also help foster a culture of innovation. Uh, Entrepreneurs are employees who are given the resources, support, and freedom to explore new ideas within the company. By empowering and supporting these individuals, companies can tap into their creativity, passion, and entrepreneurial spirits. My third recommendation for the automobile industry is to develop a flexible supply chain. A flexible supply chain is critical to adapting quickly to changing market conditions, meeting customer demand, and minimizing disruption. One way to develop a flexible supply chain is to diversify suppliers. By diversifying suppliers, companies can reduce their reliance on a single supplier and spread the risk. This can help companies avoid disruptions caused by supply chain issues. Fostering collaboration with suppliers is another way to develop a flexible supply chain. By collaborating with suppliers, companies can build stronger relationships, gain greater visibility into their supply chain, and identify new opportunities for improvement. Developing supplier collaboration programs can also help companies develop a flexible supply chain. By working closely with suppliers to streamline processes, reduce costs, and quality companies can create a more efficient and effective supply chain. Conducting risks assessments is also crucial to develop a flexible supply chain. Companies should identify potential risks such as natural disasters, geopolitical events, or supply chain disruptions, and develop contingency plans to mitigate these risks. Finally, collaborating with industry partnerships. By collaborating with industry partners, companies can share best practices, identify new opportunities, and leverage their collective expertise to improve the supply chain. My fourth recommendation for the automobile industry is to promote diversity and inclusion. To promote diversity and inclusion, companies should establish a diverse and inclusive culture that values and respects differences. This should set diversity and inclusion goals, provide diversity and inclusion training, and implement diverse recruitment and hiring practices. Companies should also review and revise their HR policies to ensure they are inclusive and promote diversity. This includes policies related to recruitment, retention, and promotion. Finally, engaging in community outreach is also essential to promoting diversity and inclusion. Companies should actively engage with diverse communities, support diverse organizations, and create opportunities for underrepresented groups. In conclusion, promoting diversity and inclusion requires establishing a diverse and inclusive culture, setting goals, providing training, implementing diverse recruitment and hiring practices, reviewing and revising HR policies, and engaging in community outreach. By embracing these principles, the automobile industry can create a more inclusive and innovative culture and reflects the diversity of its employees and customers. My final recommendation for the automobile industry is to engage in strategic partnership. To engage in strategic partnership, companies should identify potential partners and foster innovation and collaboration. Building strong relationships is also critical to the success of strategic partnership. Companies should also take steps to mitigate risks and protect intellectual property. By fostering a customer-centric approach, companies can ensure that partnerships align with the needs and desires of their customers. Finally, continuously evaluating and optimizing partnership is essential to ensure their success over time. In conclusion, engaging in strategic partnerships requires identifying opportunities, fostering innovation and collaboration, building strong relationships, mitigating risks, fostering a customer-centric approach, and continuously evaluating and optimizing partnerships. By embracing this principle, the automobile industry can leverage the strengths of other organizations, expand their reach, and develop new opportunities for growth and success.
That concludes our views on how electric vehicles are changing the auto industry and how we can manage this change. Thanks for listening.